Hey, what's up, everybody? Platform Disciple here, and Infinity Wars has got another patch. So we're gonna quickly go over the important changes, or what I thought was important, beginning with changes to draft. Unfortunately, I do not have uh, enough IP at the moment, but we'll talk about it anyway. So let's actually just go into practice. So now there's a higher chance of there being cards above rare, epics, and legends. There used to be an extremely low chance, and now they actually show up. And the other big changes is they have changed the types of cards which are going to show up as commanders and in the decks. The biggest ones are there are some cards that will no longer appear as commanders, some of which that I think are very important. I have written down three. Alita Immortal Tinkerer can no longer be a commander. Daude, not the Avatar, just Daude, and Rita, Mistress of Shadow. All three of these can't be commanders, and there are a few others as well. And I mean, like, if you've played Rift Run a few times, maybe not a few times, but if you've played regularly, you'd know that Elita Immortal Tinkerer, at least, is a disgustingly strong commander card, such that anyone who got that had a distinct advantage. As a matter of fact, I would have even said that Genesis in general had a distinct advantage, at least in part because of the Alita Immortal Tinkerer giving you such a huge leeway. The full list, you can check the patch notes to see what other cards have been restricted as commanders, but those three that I just mentioned are the biggest ones because those three were basically no brainer commander picks because they just have such a strong impact on the game throughout the entire game without you even having to play them. The other big one is that within the actual picks, you're going to no longer see certain cards that have been deemed inappropriate for draft overall. That includes there's no swarmers, and I understand why that is because the odds of you actually being able to effectively build a swarmer strategy is very low, and when you can't do that, seeing swarmers in your four picks is a really like feel bad situation because it might as well be that you have one less pick, and being forced to take a swarmer because the other cards are so bad is even worse. There's also no hunter cards, is what I'd like to call them. They were the 3-cost 6/8 that do double damage to particular types of cards. For example, Demon Hunter dealt double damage to demons, and there were a few others. So those are another card that's come out, and cards similar to that, neutral cards that were deemed bad. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of surprised to see Ethereal Fusion here still, but cards similar to this, like Single Combat was taken out. One that I'm upset about is Uncontrolled Drift is no longer in there, because I kind of think Uncontrolled Drift, if my other cards were bad, then Uncontrolled Drift was a card that had like a 10% chance of just being like super good, and then probably like I don't know, 60% chance of being like really meh and I lose tempo, and then 30% chance if I get completely screwed over. But I liked that as an option in draft. Honorable Farewell is one. Another really like. So there are some cards like Honorable Farewell. Can I actually navigate to that? I'm gonna show you that. That are just like so bad. This card is not in draft anymore because it falls into the category of like really bad. But this is an exceptional one because some of the cards that they've taken out are so bad that you can't even justify using them in constructed. And if they're no longer accessible in draft, I have to wonder, why do these cards still exist? I guess one idea is that something like Honorable Farewell still might be applicable in the future. Maybe they'll make a card with a morale cost of like 25, in which case Honorable Farewell would be totally worth using. Uh, but like some of these cards, like Demon Hunter, is like they're cards that are no longer accessible in draft, but they're so bad that I wouldn't use them anywhere else because I would never use this in constructed. Whereas in draft, I might pick this if all of my other picks were worse. So it's an interesting choice that they're taking it out of draft because I no longer know what role this card holds in the game. Like, if you guys have played something like Magic or Hearthstone, I guess, that have drafts where there are cards that you'd never use in constructive, but you might use in draft, I think Demon Hunter is one of those cards in that sense, where it's like, if there's really nothing better, I'd take it. But now that it's no longer in draft, along with these other cards that are similar, like they took out Calmando. Calmando, at least you can build a deck around and construct it, but the point is, cards like this will never be anything except in draft, and they're no longer in draft. So it's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, but let's move on to the changes. There are two cards that were changed in addition to the draft changes. Rite of Rage. It's now 2 purity, and that matters because of, at least in part, this deck, which massively abuses the card. I don't know if I don't think I've made a video on this deck, and it looks like I might end up not ever making a video on it, at least not until I edit it. But the idea was that turn 2, you could put out Paladin of the Flame Dawn, and then turn 3, you could use Splat, and Rite of Rage to sacrifice Vasir and do Splat would do 44 damage to Paladin of the Flame Dawn, but that damage would be prevented by Rite of Rage, and then you'd have a 50-50 Paladin of the Flame Dawn on turn 3. Which I thought was hilarious. I don't even think it's that unbalanced, because this deck gets completely screwed over by any kind of interruption whatsoever. Like, if someone like, I don't know, if someone demonizes my Paladin of the Flame Dawn, it's over. I just lose. I have no backup plan. But I can see why they made the change. Another change, which I did not think was as warranted. Yeah, I have to show entire collection here. It's Intimidating Rally. Oops. Gosh. This thing is now double purity. I don't think the change was warranted because I didn't see as much of the card. But apparently, from what it sounded like, it would be used in strategies like the one I just described, where you'd have really powerful setup and then just sweep all their defenders in one turn for easy victory. So I don't think the change was warranted, but it's much smaller change because I think the kinds of decks that used Intimidating Rally, with the exception of this kind of combo deck, kind of already didn't mind being 2 into Flame Dawn. Like, the decks that I'm most likely to be using Intimidating Rally in are probably like triple Flame Dawn or double Flame Dawn 1 Overseers or something like that. So this is a much smaller change, and Red Rage, just for the sake of making sure that this cheesy deck doesn't ever get good, is probably a reasonable change. Anyways, now we're actually going to go on to the store. I had like $7 into my Steam account, just converted it into Lightmare points, because we have this Wealthy Noble alternate art pack. And I've been looking for a chance to spend a little money on Infinity Wars, but I can't justify spending it on the existing sets because I already have so many of them. But this is a perfect outlet for me to support the game, and hopefully we'll get some of those alternate art Wealthy Nobles, and we will enjoy opening those together. Okay. Cross our fingers here. I'm hoping that glowing is the alternate art glowing, I guess, if that exists. Um, and I'll let you guys know if there's anything that I think is noteworthy. There we go. Look at that. Alternate art, wealthy noble. Sweet. Moving on to the next one. Okay, so this one might not have an alternate art, wealthy noble, because that's no longer the same kind of glowing. We did get a foil primal rage, though. That's not bad. And precautionary measures. There's our wealthy noble, I hope. If I could get 3 of these guys, that would be fantastic. Yep. Sweet deal. Yeah, I think we made it. We did it. Awesome. One more. And it was just 3. So, perfect, I guess. And that's all for today. I'm not actually going to do any gameplay. But hopefully sometime in the near future I will get in a new Rift Run gameplay or maybe some ranked gameplay. But I'm getting close to the end of my school year and I have a lot of work, so I can't make any promises. But until then, peace out.